My point of view is that there's a distinction. There's a reason why we make the distinction to have male athletics versus female athletics. The reason is that males have a physiological advantage over women. So in most sports, most physical sports, we do not have males compete with females. The question becomes when someone who is male transitions and becomes female, do those same physiological advantages apply? And what is the evidence? Well, the evidence in competition seems to be that it shows that it does apply, particularly in weightlifting, rugby, mountain biking, power heavy sports that favor larger people, stronger bodies. Males that transition to females have a significant advantage, and they're breaking world records.
If you imagine building the perfect labor-saving technology, right? Where you imagine just having a machine that can build any machine, that can do any human labor, powered by sunlight, more or less for the cost of raw materials, right? So you're talking about the ultimate wealth generation device. And now we're not just talking about blue-collar labor, we're talking about the kind of labor you and I do, right? So like the artistic labor and scientific labor and just a machine that comes up with good ideas, right? So we're talking about general artificial intelligence.
Did you know that Hezbollah, which is a known and recognized terrorist organization, so forget hate speech for a moment, a terrorist organization that believes in actually killing civilians, and Hamas, a known and recognized terrorist organization that believes in bombing babies on buses as a form of resistance, they still have accounts on Twitter. And my point is this is the blind spot, and I've flagged Twitter about this on many an occasion. This is the cultural blind spot. This is the digital blind spot that the dude sitting in California, in wherever, who is monitoring this stuff, and it's probably more than one person. They don't give a shit.
What Quranic abrogation means, what it means is that because the Quran is inherently internally inconsistent, like a lot of big, long, complicated books, right? Quranic abrogation is not a Western principle. It is an accepted Islamic principle of scholarship, which says that out of the verses that contradict one another, the verses that were revealed to Muhammad later supersede the ones that were revealed earlier. So if you reorder the Quran chronologically, the stuff that came later, that was revealed to Muhammad by Allah later, supersedes anything that might be contradictory in the earlier verses.
People who don't grow up don't find the sort of meaning in their life that sustains them through difficult times, and they are certain to encounter difficult times. And they're left bitter and resentful and without purpose and adrift and hostile and resentful and vengeful and arrogant and deceitful and of no use to themselves and of no use to anyone else and no partner for a woman, and there's nothing in it that's good.
There's a tremendous danger in a socially mediated world in which those who are successful because some social thing has told them that they are correct. Because you can be dead wrong, seem correct, and move ahead in a social world, whereas if you're doing carpentry, if you're in some sort of competition, the nature of the beast is one that will tell you when you've got it wrong, and therefore it will allow you to actually improve your insight in whatever form you have it. So I'm a tremendous fan of the idea that even if your world is largely socially mediated, you have to make sure that some part of it isn't. And you are confronting something real enough to tell you when you're confused so that you can learn how not to be confused.
Look, there are fascists running around the streets of Portland, but it's not Andy Ngo, and it's not the people trying to report on these people. It's the people that are known as the anti-fascists. It's Antifa. These people that put on masks and attack people and silence people using violence, these are the fascists. And Ted Wheeler, I mean, this guy, I truly can't even imagine being more of an embarrassment as a public elected official. I mean, he's the head of the police. Why are those people not all arrested? We've got plenty of video on this. I also think it's sort of interesting that even in the framing of this, that Andy's being portrayed as a conservative or as someone on the right, as if that somehow slightly excuses it. He must kind of be a bad guy because he's conservative or on the right.
A lot of people might say I'm a little alarmist when I mention a potential civil war, but let me clarify. I'm not saying, because I've brought this up before, I'm not saying it's going to be like, 1800s, two big battlefields. But at the same time, what people don't seem to realize when it comes to history is that when you read about World War II, we've condensed all the highlights into a very short paragraph or a series of paragraphs. And you don't realize the war was several years. There were periods where nothing happened. right? I was in Egypt during the Second Revolution. You could look down and you could see Tahrir Square. People screaming, laser pointers, helicopters, Apaches, and they announce in the news, we've deposed the president. 2 blocks away, a dude's eating a cheeseburger at McDonald's watching a football match, as if nothing's happening.
On the right, for as long as I've been alive, there's been a lot of questions about media objectivity, and I don't think that those questions are ill-founded. I think this is why, as I've been saying, it's really incumbent on the media to do as much reporting of the facts as possible and leave a lot of the hyperbole out of it. I know that's really difficult in a time when, you know, the hyperbole seems to not only get ratings but also to jog people's kind of amygdalas. But the fact is that the more the media underplays, I think the better they will do in terms of people trusting them. Because at this time, what's happening right now is everything's breaking down into tribal affinity. President Trump says fake news. A lot of his people say, okay, well, if the president says it, the media are fake on a lot of topics, or at least they are biased on a lot of topics, so why wouldn't they be biased here as well?